Greetings. I am Dr. Mark Davey, the District Superintendent for Champlain Valley Educational Services, known formally as Clinton, Essex, Warren, Washington, BOCES. I am pleased to present our 23-24 CVES proposed budget with Mr. Eric Bell, CVES's Assistant Superintendent of Management Services. We are recording our budget presentation for our BOCES board members, and so members of our school community, including staff, school community members, and our 16 component school districts, including their boards of education, superintendents, and school communities we serve, will have a better understanding of Champlain Valley Educational Services budget proposed for the 23-24 school year. CVES BOCES has a long-standing tradition of excellence and providing cost-effective, high-quality programming and services for the past 73 years. During that time, we have worked closely with our component school districts to support our region in career and technical education, special education, and our numerous educational services and programs to support our region's students, school districts, and our school communities. In addition, CVES works in strong partnership with our business and community leaders to support our region's high-quality educational system, which enhances our community and is an essential part in supporting the region's economic development. As our region's Board of Cooperative Educational Services, CVES BOCES, we are honored to provide our well-regarded and long-standing services, programs, and support to continue to grow and expand our offerings and services to better meet the needs of our component school districts and students moving forward. So let's move forward to our business at hand. First and foremost, I would like to thank our 22-23 CVES Budget Committee members from the CVES Board, Mrs. Lisa Boyce, Mrs. Pat Giro, and Mrs. Lori Saunders for their diligent work and thoughtful service throughout the school year. On the CVES Budget Committee, they have been invaluable in developing the recommended 23-24 CVES proposed budget, along with the support of the entire CVES Board. We have worked through the budget calendar from October to February and are presenting CVES's proposed 23-24 budget in February 2023. We will also review this budget and information with our component chief school officers and school business officials on Friday, February 10th. At this time, I would like to hand over the presentation to Mr. Eric Bell, our Assistant Superintendent for Management Services, who will share the budget development factors and financial information affecting this year's 23-24 CVES budget development and our recommendations.
Thank you, Dr. Davey. We'll now take a look at the BOCES budgets. If you have questions, please save them till the end. We'd be happy to take a deeper dive for you. But for right now, we will touch on each and every one of our budgets. The first item we're going to look at is budget development factors that impact the BOCES as well as our component school districts. First item up is the governor's executive budget just released at the beginning of February. Total school aid increasing $3.1 billion, or a 10% increase to $33.9 billion. A significant increase in the executive budget, one the governor claims to be the highest ever increase. When we look at our CVES component school districts, we find a $15.6 million increase in foundation aid, or 11.5%, to a total of $151 million. Also, BOCES aid is increasing over $2 million, or 15% from year to year, and the total state aid is a $21.4 million increase, or 11.2% increase for our component districts. Also in a budget development factor is health insurance increases. At this time, we've estimated a 7.5% increase for Plan 2 and a 5% increase for Plan 1 plans. Realize the Consortium Board of Directors will not set rate until mid-February is the anticipated timeline. If CVES if the board settles on a different rate than what we budgeted for, we will need to make adjustments to the admin's budget that will be presented here shortly. Also note, impacting our budgets was the minimum wage increase of over $1, as well as the anticipation of continued increases in the upcoming December. Next, moving to CVES administrative and capital budget, we want to talk about what is in the administrative budget. Obviously, we talk a lot about the retiree health insurance costs as being a requirement of this budget. That is 80% of it, but realize that it's the basis and foundation of how CVES operates. at a grand level falls into the administrative budget, whether it's board expenses, the DS office, the business office, payroll, HR, accounts payable, or a small portion of the CVS senior leaderships, all fall into the admin budget for a total of 9.4 FTEs. Also, we're going to talk a lot about retiree health insurance plans, but for 23-24, we are budgeting 393 plans, and the budget is distributed based on our WADA. First part of the admin and capital budget, we want to look at is the capital and rent budget. Total budget of $525,000. The phase 2 portion of our capital project will be using the $500,000 budgeted for in 2023 and 2024. And then rent is increasing for this year. We are looking for expansion in our RISE Center for Success programming into districts. Therefore, we are building funds into our rent budget to expand in that area. This will impact school district's tax cap calculation, as the calculation allows for BOCES capital exclusion. Next, looking at our administrative budget at a grand level and at an overall level, you can see the net impact cost to district is an increase of $733,951, or just over 11%. Of that increase, or really of the total budget, $6 million of it is due to retiree benefits, or 9.83% of that increase, totaling just under $660,000 of the increase. 1.52% of the increase is the remaining portion of our admin budget without retiree health benefits. At the bottom of the slide, you will see a breakdown on a per code basis. Realize that in the 1250 general admin, that's where the retiree health portion of the admin budget falls. Next, looking at CVES health insurance, historical, currently as our actives and our retirees, we want to give you a breakdown of really how are we budgeting across all of our budgets, not just in the admin budget. So when we look at our actives in January of 2023, we have about 226 plans. When we forecast that out with premium increases, that cost for next year would be $5.8 million. The retiree portion, as I said, was just above $6 million, or an $11.8 million combined. We do have 26 known retirees in 22-23 between July 1 and June 30th that are coming into our admin budget. So that is the significant driver of the increased costs in our admin budget. There also is changes in the rates, as we discussed earlier, that we're projecting the 5% on Plan 1, which is a majority of our retirees, as you can see by this slide. That is driving some of that increased cost as well. Next, we want to look at CVES health insurance and give you a historical look, and something that we've been monitoring as we plan and try to be fiscally responsible and plan to the future. We do look back at the history and what the impact's been and what the growth has been. So in 2014-15, our budget retiree costs were just under $2.3 million. In 23-24, we're just over $6 million, and you can see the changes in number of plans. There, you can see a growth of 175 extra plans, or an 80% growth. When we look at premium, it's interesting to look at the 2014-2015 rate for a family plan was $17,200. We're projecting for 23-24 to be around $33,400 for that family plan, which is a 94% growth. Next, we want to talk about some of the work that the CVES board, CVES leadership, and the unions at CVES have collaborated on in order to mitigate some of these retiree costs. We know, we just talked about the exponential growth that we've had, which I believe is similar across school districts in our area. So some of the items we've worked on, first with our CVES United Professionals, which is our NICE group, is looking at increased contributions towards premiums in retirement, as well as increased years of service needed in order to retire and be eligible for health insurance. And you can see a breakdown there. Realize that 52% of the members of this group fall into the new hire category, which says they have to work 15 years and they will pay the same percent as when they were active in retirement. Now, looking at some of our other groups, you will see again a common theme of additional contributions in retirement, additional years of service in order to qualify for health insurance in retirement. Across our groups, we have removed Medicare reimbursements as a benefit for retirees, As you saw previously, that was $500,000 of our admin budget. Therefore, we are mitigating that cost into the future. Also note that the HRA has been removed across all of our collective bargaining agreements. That completes our admin and capital portion of our budget, and we'll now transition to our program budgets.
For our CV Tech division, we are pleased to share the important budgetary spotlight regarding our career and technical education programming offered to our secondary and post-secondary students, including our adult literacy programming and continuing education programming for our school districts and community members of Clinton and Essex counties. CV Tech has a rich history in the North Country, and we are proud and committed to continuing the tradition of excellence on all of our CV Tech campuses and locations. We are pleased to share that as of January 2023, our total daytime programming encompassed 814 students, made up of 777 high school students, 23 post-secondary students, and 14 licensed practical nursing students. Our enrollment over the past 5 years has increased significantly. For example, in 22-23, over 40% of our region's juniors and seniors attended CV Tech's exceptional programming, including offerings which are new, including our New Visions Applied Engineering program, now in its 3rd year. We are honored to serve all of our CTE students. We want to note that one of our CV Tech and HSE, high school equivalency students, has been recently recognized as the New York State Association for Continuing and Community Education NYS ACEE Student of the Year Award for her exceptional work and personal accomplishments as part of our CTE programming. Additionally, CV Tech has been recently notified that we were selected to receive one of the Southeast Regional Education Board's SREB 2023's National Pacesetter School Awards. This is a distinguished honor. CV Tech is being recognized for our outstanding programming, high-quality instruction, graduation success, our students' credential attainment, and a culture of continuous improvement. In July, CV Tech will be presented this national award at SREB's 2023 Making Schools Work Conference in Orlando, Florida.
Thank you, Dr. Davey. Looking at the CV Tech portion of our BOCES budgets, the CV Tech budget totals just under $10 million, or $9.8 million for 23-24. We look at staffing. We have 67.5 FTEs serving the over 800 students Dr. Davey just mentioned, as well as our cost per student, which we do not bill on a tuition basis anymore because of enrollment averaging, but we'd like to share for transparency. The cost per student charge equates to $12,922, or a 2.95% increase. When we look at enrollment averaging, our next slide will give full details on this. Our enrollment average for next year is just under 630 students, which is over 94 students below what our current enrollment as of the 12-1 lock-in for this school year. Now looking at the details of enrollment averaging, you will see our current FTEs is 725 students. That was the lock-in number for 2022-2023. This has driven up our 5-year enrollment average to just under 630 from what the current enrollment average is, which is 591. Total budget, CV Tech budget allocated to districts as part of enrollment averaging is just over $8.1 million. And you can see the dollar impact to districts change is just over $700,000. And that is primarily driven by the increased enrollment and participation in CV Tech programming. Next portion of the CV Tech budget we're looking at is the Job Target program. You can see a history of enrollment in this program, and we're proposing a tuition rate of $16,870 per student, or a 2.95% increase. This completes our look at the CV Tech budget, and now I'll pass it to Dr. Davey for a look at our RISE Center for Success.
Next, we want to highlight our special education division, now known as the RISE Center for Success. The RISE Center for Success is known for specializing in providing educational services and programming to meet the needs of our students and component districts throughout the North Country. As of January 2023, there were almost 200 students in our programmatic offerings, which include 6 autism classrooms, 12 academic behavioral classrooms, 9 classrooms of life skills programming, and 2 classrooms for our ITSP program, known for its intensive therapy and support programming. We are pleased to offer our specialized programming and work with our special education directors and chairpersons and their CSEs, their committees on special education, to plan, develop, and support the student-based programming and itinerant needs to meet the needs of our students throughout our CVES component districts. We want to highlight several success stories for the RISE Center of Success, including noting that many of our students from the Mineville campus are visiting North Country colleges, and some students have already been accepted. In addition, we want to spotlight our postgraduate community work and partnership with the Plattsburgh City School District to support new programming for students across the region. We are also pleased to recognize the ongoing implementation of high-quality programming at the RISE Center for Success, including the implementation of research-based practices, new training, opportunities for student aides, support, and enhanced transition support to help our students become successful adults.
Thank you, Dr. Davey. The RISE Center for Success total budget is $16.65 million. This has just over 208 full-time equivalents in this budget, servicing four classroom programs. You can see autism, academic, behavioral, life skills, ITSP, and the accompanying tuition rates. The rate change on those tuitions ranges from 1.15% to 2.97%. Also, we want to touch on our one-to-one student aid rate is increasing almost 9.5%, and this is driven by the minimum wage increase of that $1 we talked about, as well as the implementation of a health insurance waiver into this group and longevity payments, all trying to encourage and recruit staffing as we've struggled to recruit and retain our student aides. Therefore, those efforts are having an increase on the charge for a one-to-one student aid. Please note that the cost of a student aid with a family plan is actually over $56,000. Therefore, we're able to charge well below that amount based on our current employment and health insurance plans selected. Looking at our related services and itinerant rate changes in our RISE Center for Success, many of them have been held flat or at 0% change or very close to it, and ranging our preschool committee increasing 3.37% and our itinerant speech increasing 2.9%. This completes our RISE Center for Success budget. Now passing it to Dr. Davey to transition to management services.
Next, our Management Services Division provides comprehensive support and administrative services and COSERs to our component districts, including a variety of cross contracts. We are also pleased to assist our component districts when requested to consider expanded services and offering of new COSERs when a recognized need is established. We are pleased to highlight several management services success stories, including the new HRA and FSA COSER. Recently, CVES and our component districts identified a new opportunity for support as part of CVES's Benefit Service for Employee Benefits Plan Administration, led by Ms. Vicki DeMars-Giroux, our CVES Benefits Director. Next, we want to recognize the Cafeteria Management COSER's expansion, led by the COSER's Director, Ms. Julie Holbrook, to support high-quality food service, coordination, and cafeteria management leadership for our region's students and school districts. Lastly, we want to recognize the expansion of our Labor Relations COSER to include human resources, HR, and payroll support for our component school districts, with plans for staffing within each participating district under the direction of Labor Relations Director, Mr. Joseph Coakley.
Overall, the total management services budget is just over $1.6 million. There are 7 COSERs supported by 14.5 full-time equivalents. When we look at the rate changes across management services, it drives an additional revenue of $19,000 or 1.4% increase. Now looking at our management services COSERs that are provided, We have 7 different COSERs, and you can see the range is from a 0% increase to a 2.62% increase. Our health insurance and workers' compensation coordination increasing below 2%. And our CVES benefit services, which is a brand new COSER that started in 22-23, we are holding flat with no change there as we continue to increase that service amongst our component districts. When we look at GASB 75, you can see a less than 1% increase there. Of note, we have 52 districts participating in that COSER across New York State. That completes our look at management services budgets. Now to Dr. Davey for the school support services.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. One final divisional budget to share highlights from is our school support services, known as the S3 division, formerly known as our Instructional Services Center. S3 provides a variety of specialized personnel to provide assistance to our component districts with a variety of almost 20 cooperative services available. In addition, this division plays an essential role in supporting our component districts' professional development, training, and services needs, which enhance our district's educational offerings, extracurricular and interscholastic activities, and a wide variety of school resources and communication. We want to highlight several success stories of school support services. First, our new CVES Conference Center at the Learning Hub campus provides an exceptional, state-of-the-art regional location for training, professional development offerings, and programming for CVES and our component school districts. Next, we want to recognize that CVES plays an essential role in supporting our districts and their federal ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act funding, by supporting our districts in their school library system COSER. This COSER assists our districts in purchasing of ebooks and audiobooks for our school districts and CVES to support the New York State Education Department's DEI framework. That's the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Framework as set forth by the New York State Board of Regents and our Commissioner of Education, Dr. Betty Rosa. Lastly, we would like to recognize the expanded support and services of our Interscholastic Athletics Coordination COSER, led by Director Matthew Wallentuck, and acknowledge that CVES is now facilitating payments for the Section 7's officials throughout our 26 district section. This COSER support of our region's districts by taking a significant workload off of each district as CVES enhances our support and coordination of the area's Section 7 interscholastic events and their officials.
The school support services budget is over $5.6 million for 23-24, with a total staffing of 30.66 full-time equivalents supporting 18 COSERs. As Dr. Davey just mentioned, a number of those COSERs. When we look at the actual rate change on these COSERs, we are looking at just under $33,000 in additional rate charges to districts. When we look at it based on a percent, that is a 0.69% increase, less than 1%. Some of the big COSERs with large participation that we want to mention, our health, safety, risk management rate change is at 0%. Our grants management COSER is increasing at 3% rate change. Our instructional technology base fee will have a zero change or a 0% change in the base fee. When we look at the Interscholastic Athletics Coordination COSER, we're looking at a 2.9% increased cost per district. And when we look at the per sport fee, there is an 8.24% increase on the rate. This is driven by a 33 sport decrease in the COSER. So across our 26 school districts, there was a drop in number of sports being provided to students of 33. Therefore, we've had a larger rate increase in that area on a per sport basis. The total impact of these rate increases on the Interscholastic Athletics Coordination COSER across all districts participating is $3,542. That completes our look at school support services. Now we're going to look at some factors impacting districts on an allocation basis of the BOCES budget and BOCES costs. First up is ARWADA and what the ARWADA change for 23-24 budgets is. In 22-23, total ARWADA was $13,699. In 23-24, it is now 13,502, or a net change of minus 197. Our WADA is resident weighted average daily attendance. Therefore, students are weighted differently, as well as it takes into consideration student enrollment. And many of our districts have had challenges, and really districts across the state, with student attendance. So that this will impact our budgets, especially with districts who are increasing when the overall whole is decreasing. Therefore, the allocations of some of our budgets are impacted based on these changes. Next, we're going to look at BOCES aid and the surplus summary. When we look at total 22-23 budget, it was just under $44.5 million for CVES. Of that, $18.6 million were non-aidable. So aidable services, CVS had $25.9 million. Of those aidable services, we had 54% BOCES aid paid back to districts on them, as well as having surplus returned to the districts. When we combine those two, on average, 42% of our cost of BOCES aidable services was paid by districts. What that means is, on average, 42 cents on every dollar is what districts pay for CVS aidable services. Next, looking at districts' BOCES aid ratios, you can see the updated aid ratios for all of our component districts, and for programs and services, it ranges from the minimum of 36% all the way up to a high of our districts of 83.6% for BOCES aid ratios. That wraps up the financial details of our BOCES budgets. I'll now pass it back to Dr. Davey to close us out.
Thank you, Mr. Bell, for your review and thoughtful explanation of CVS's proposed 2023-24 budget parts. As the final step of this presentation, we want to emphasize the importance of each district's review of its budget information. We also want to acknowledge the importance of the state's BOCES aid and reimbursement of surplus each year as part of CVES's annual budget process. At CVES BOCES, we are honored to work closely with our 16 component school districts, your approximately 14,000 students, your staff, your administrators, and superintendents to support and strengthen our region's educational systems and offerings. The final slide is an overview of our budget's next step. A budget presentation will be given to the chief school officers and their business officials on Friday, February 10th. At that meeting, we will review this presentation and answer any questions our chief school officers and their business officials have as they review and analyze their participation in the CVES proposed budget. We appreciate our component districts' participation and review of this budget information. We are especially appreciative of the vital role that our CVS BOCES board plays in supporting the ongoing work of CVS. As the governing BOCES board and representatives from our component districts, their commitment, time, and hard work are invaluable in supporting our CVS programs and services and our region's students to provide the best education possible for their future success. Thank you for your review of this information in the budget.